Hello, everybody, and welcome to Todd and Shane's Cloudy Podcast, episode number 413, recorded live and in color, no thanks to Shane, on Wednesday, December 12th, 2018. Well, hello, Shane. It's been a while since you and I have done a podcast together.
I was just thinking, I didn't know if I needed to, introduce myself to you. I mean, I feel like we've been disconnected, and I kind of missed you. I mean, as much as I hate to admit that.
I was just thinking how you've got the squeaky voice, and you're going to say, I'm the guy over here with the squeaky voice, and then I just assumed you would reply that I'm the guy that has the Ray Romano voice, and then we could come up with fake identities, Squeaky and Ray or something.
See, I was trying to go do some research while you were talking. I get bored while you talk.
I understand, yeah.
But so we forgot to mention this is show 413, right? And the reason that we couldn't do it one or the other is because 413 is Payload is too big, and so we had to be we need our two giant heads in here to really make the payload too big. So.
I think we have this week's title.
There you go. And I will I'll throw my Santa hat. And don't worry, folks. We have to get custom made Santa hats because our heads are so big.
Yes, and I lost one of mine last week. I think when I was packing. So we're gonna when we get into the thing here. I was traveling last week and lots of hysterics from that. But I lost one of my Santa hats. I think I left it in Croatia.
That's always sad.
So yes, my custom-made big head Santa hat is, in a hotel room in Zagreb somewhere probably.
Yeah, and that's what happens to all good hats. I mean, so back in my volleyball playing and coaching days, I used to run around in a big old cat in the hat, right? And I'm 6'4", 6'5", but I'm a pretty tall dude, and so then you have an extra foot of hat on top of my head. It made me look really big, and I left it at a tournament one time, and I was really sad because I enjoyed, the whole cat in the hat thing.
Yep. So for production and all that, I'm all caught up with last week's. I've not watched last week's episode yet. I heard it was good. I'm afraid to listen to it because I'll get jealous. But I was well received from what I understand.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember someone, I don't know who it was, talking about comparing me to Stephen Dubner in my interviewing skills. So I don't know who started that rumor, but
I'm sure it was something to the effect of you are completely unlike Stephen Dubner or...
I chose my words well. I said they compared. I did not say that they equated. I said compared.
Positive Yep. But yeah, so I was gone last week talking to the folks at Syskit a little bit. I'm going to talk about that when we get into the topics. But yeah, they are sponsors of ours, and we'd like to talk about that. And then this week, I kind of wanted to bring it up a little bit. So I'm wearing this very stylish hoodie that I got at the Thrive conference in Ljubljana last week. But I'm going to take that off because it's getting a little hot, but I wanted to show off and I can't see if that shows up.
Yeah, the good news is I did not show, you gotta get bigger. There you go. That'll work.
I'm watching the stream like everybody else, so I have to...
Todd is so low on the show, we don't even give him a live feed. He has to watch the show while he's doing the show.
Yep. So the folks at the Thrive conference provided me this great hoodie, which was awesome because it was a little chilly in Slovenia last week. And then this awesome blue shirt. So it's also got the Thrive logo. So but that was a good conference. Had a blast over there. Did an all-day session with my buddy Robbie on administration. One thing that was curious there, I think in the States, you would acknowledge that most of the new things these days, most of the new installations and all that are going online. I'm doing few on-premises migrations, more, migrations to Office 365, things like that. Over there in Slovenia, completely the opposite. So I wrote this all-day class and had a bunch of cloud content, and nobody in the class really was doing cloud stuff. They were all doing on-prem stuff.
Well, so I guess you were just getting them ready for the future, right? You were kind of setting the tone of 5 or 7 or 10 years from now. This is the info you guys will need.
No, and you and I talked about it when we were prepping for the show. You and I can chat at great length on many topics. And so when I, did the thing at the beginning, had everybody introduce themselves so I knew who they were and what they were using. Every single one of them was on-prem. And I'm like, all right, Robbie, looks like we're calling it audible. Sections 3 through 10, we will not be touching. And instead, no, it was good. But then when I got to Croatia, so I was in Zagreb, I was in Slovenia Sunday through Wednesday. And then Wednesday night went over to Zagreb and was there through Saturday. Croatia was more online stuff, not completely, but more online. So
So any perspective on why they were all still on-prem to on-prem? I mean, did they give you like some reasons that they weren't ready to go to online?
Oh yeah, so we talked about that. That was my first question
Yeah.
is why. It was a combination of things. And part of it is the internet access there is good. They're not, backward country or anything like of the sort, but they work differently. And so they're just not used to, doing things they don't like they don't work from home. Like that's not a thing there. And so having the on-prem stuff just works fine for them. Part of it was security and not the way that we're thinking. A lot of them have some amount of distrust for having things in American data centers. And for Slovenia, there are not a lot of local data centers to have things. So the German data centers are starting to show up for Office 365, but for the rest of them, they'd be going to Ireland or wherever, things like that. That was part of it. And then just they haven't changed their business practices to take advantage of the online thing. So on-prem does what they expect it to and works great. And
No PowerApps and Flow. It just sounds like a terrible world. It's like Stone Ages.
And I try, obviously I talked about that stuff and tried to get them excited about it. And we talked about it a bunch at that conference, and they're curious. Flow and PowerApps got a lot of questions. People are still trying to wrap their heads around what all that means. Penny Coventry was at that conference. She did a couple sessions on PowerApps that I sat through, and there were people there. So they're there.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I definitely get it, right? It's new, and I mean, I've been doing it for so long at this point. Like, it's like old hat, but I realize in the grand scheme of things, right, we're still on the very far left of the old bell curve. I mean, we are nowhere. So.
Yeah, I was talking to the folks at Syskit, and we were just kicking around ideas for new products and ways to adjust things. And I brought up a bunch of things around Flow and PowerApps, inventory things and management things and all that to add into their tool. And one of the guys there's like, man, is anybody even using this stuff yet? Is this just demoware that Microsoft does in keynotes, or are there actual businesses using this? And I'm like, oh yeah. I'm like, maybe not, everywhere, but certainly the customers that Shane are working with, because he only works with PowerApps customers, he's keeping busy. Oh yeah, he's doing some stuff. So
yeah, and I think the crazier thing, right, for a lot of you didn't realize was as you start to look at this PowerApps and Flow, is man, it goes viral really fast, right? You spin up that one app, you show one person, and it is just taking off. One of my customers is replacing their $100,000 a year. Purchasing an IT asset management system with a Power App, right? They're like, we can build this Power App for, I don't know, $10,000, $20,000 and just do it once and make it exactly what we want, or we can buy that $100,000 a year prepackaged software. I mean, there's someone like, they're way ahead on the curve, but that's what's happening, right? They built one little app. They're like, crap, we really like this. They built 20 apps. They're like, whoa, we're in love with this. Now, how can we never buy packaged software again and just do it all in Power Apps? Is their mentality. I mean, they're not going to be successful. I don't want to oversell it, but that's their new mentality is, can we do it in Power Apps instead of paying for packaged software? So
yeah, I had that exact conversation with an attendee at the conference, because it was a smaller company and they had kind of cobbled systems together, and they were big enough now that they had to get something, the spreadsheets and all that had been running the company for years just couldn't quite keep up. And they were talking about that. And I can't remember which one of the cloud services they were going to, and I can't remember if it was ERP or what it was, but they're like, I don't know if we want to spend this money because it feels like this is something we can do in Power Apps. It feels like we can bolt all this together in Power Apps. I'm like, well, that's because you can. I mean, that's so we had that conversation, and basically, I talked them through the different things that, I'm like, you need to define your process. You need to break it down and figure out where the pieces are. And then you need to decide, do you want to always have somebody on staff that can manage this? Do you want to pay a little bit more money and have somebody else, a third party? So those conversations are happening. That's absolutely the value that people see. So that was good. That was a fun conversation to have.
Well, very cool. So it sounds, they let you back in our country, so it sounds like your trip must have been okay.
Yeah, and again, a shout out to Bronca at Compass for putting Thrive on. She always does a great job. I had some flight issues. I got stuck in a blizzard and missed my flight across the ocean, and so things got a little crazy, but she took great care of me, got me put where I needed to go. The folks at Syskit were great. So we were driving. They took me from there were some of the Syskit folks were at the conference, and they took me from Ljubljana to Zagreb Wednesday night. And when you go across the border into Croatia, they've got border control and all that kind of stuff. Nothing like around here, but they've got it. I've done that drive a couple of times, and so I knew it was coming up. And about half a mile before the border, I was kind of dozing off. The driver pulls off to the side of the road, and I'm like, "What's going on here? Like, are we running? we hiding something?" This seems like this gets attention here. One of the guys had left his passport in the back of the car, so he had to go back and get it. I was like, "Oh my God, what have I gotten myself? I don't want to get shot tonight." But no, the travels went okay. I did one thing. This is something I'd never done before, so I wanted to bring it up because of the craziness of the flights. I had a gigantic layover in Amsterdam. I had an 8-hour layover in Amsterdam, which is just Amsterdam's a great airport. If I'm going to get laid over anywhere in an airport, Amsterdam is the one to get laid over in. 8 hours is still a really long time. But Amsterdam, among other airports, have these things called yotels or yotel air. I've seen it both ways. They are like little pods, like little cabin hotel rooms at the airport that you pay for by the hour. So I landed at like noon or 10 o'clock in the morning. I forget exactly what time it was, and had one of those things for 6 hours. It's got a bed, it's got a bathroom, it's got a shower, it's got a TV, it's got internet and power and all that. Checked in there, laid down, slept for like 3 hours, got up, all my stuff was charged, took a shower, changed my clothes, left all my bags locked in there, went out, got something to eat, and didn't have to carry all my junk around. Man, it was awesome. So if you ever got a really long layover somewhere special international traveling, check those yotels out. It was great.
And what, I mean, I don't care. How much was it? What did it cost you for 6 hours?
It wasn't bad for that 6 hours. It was like $90.
Oh, wow.
Like
that's way less than I thought. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It was, so when I was talking about people having that layover, like, well, I hope you've got lounge access or something. I'm like, well, I probably do. I've got a couple of different American Express cards and things like that. This thing was way better than a lounge. And if you don't have lounge access, lounges like that are like $30-$40. For the extra $50, just being able. So for me, I can never sleep in hotels because I just can't not be aware of all the people around me long enough to get calm and sleep. I was in a locked room. The shades were drawn. I was in a bed. I had an alarm clock. I knew I wasn't going to. It was good stuff.
Yeah, and I know Atlanta has a very similar type of concept, but and I've seen it at a couple airports, but I've never tried it, so that's good to know.
Yeah, that was all my wife's idea. I would have never thought of it, but that was great. So if you're ever thinking about that somewhere, you got a long layover, absolutely recommend those.
Well, wifey is the smart and good-looking one.
Yes, she brings a lot to the show, absolutely. So I did that. So the other thing that I've been doing, because we're going to front load the show with all of my stuff, so if we run out of time, we can't talk about any of your stuff.
I'm shocked. The viewers are like, what? We would never do something like that.
You could always tell who touches the slides or the notes last. I, like many folks out there, I have a OneNote that is chock full of blog posts that I need to write. I think now I'm down to about 10 of them. And I finally published one yesterday, so I want to talk about that. This was a fun situation. I've talked about it on the show before, about a customer that I had that deleted a few, 100,000 items in Office 365 and realized a couple weeks later they needed to restore them. And so I used PowerShell to sift through all the items in the recycle bin and only restore exactly the ones that we wanted to restore. So I finally blogged that yesterday and got that put out there. And that was one. It's a niche case, but boy, that's going to be one when somebody needs it. They're going to be super happy that that's all out there and distilled for them. So got that one out.
That's always nice when you can get those ones out there. Like you said, right? It means nothing to the average bear, but man, that one person who needs it, they're going to be like life changed right here. So those are the most rewarding posts sometimes, I think.
Yeah, and the other thing is it just it gets people's juices flowing. And the other thing that I thought about, and I've come so close to this, and you and I have talked about this, it was probably a year ago, about doing a Twitch style thing for figuring out PowerShell. So, we come up with an idea on how to do something and we just stream it live and people just want to see the process. How did I come across figuring out how to do this? And I have thought about that several times as I've tried to figure something out. And my concern has always been, what if I can't figure out how to do the thing that these people are watching me try to do? How embarrassing is that? But every time I've thought that, I've been able to figure out the thing that I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to figure out. And number two, I think for a lot of people, just the thought process, just watching, is probably valuable. So I still keep kicking that idea around a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, right? I think seeing how you or I or someone like that approaches the problem, right? What did you try? You know, even if it didn't work, what were your your methodology for getting through that? I think is a big help to a lot of people because it just helps, like you said, prime the fire for them a little bit.
Yep. So I thought about doing a video for that recycle bin one and just walking through the steps. And I've got another one in the hopper on how to use PowerShell to copy Office 365 group membership.
Okay.
Because you can't nest anything, you can't reuse anything with groups right now, but of course PowerShell can do anything. So PowerShell to the rescue. That one provided a couple of unique challenges, so I thought about maybe doing a video for that one and the recycle bin one, just walking through the process.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that somebody asked me yesterday about with Power Apps. Like, hey, I want to query the Office 365 group stuff, and there's not a built-in function for that, right? So to do it, I think we would have to go hit the old
Hit the graph.
Graph API, which is such a terrible name.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the way they would have to go after it, and it's good.
If you go down that road, if you have any questions about the graph, I had to fight some of that to get my PowerShell and all that to work, so hit me up.
Got you. Forward the email to you. Yeah. Todd will do this for you.
No, that's not. Oh, the graph is one of those things. It's not in the notes, but the graph is one of those things that keeps coming up. Like I've probably had conversations about the graph more in the last 2 weeks than I have ever in my life.
Yeah, I wish they would just go ahead and rebrand it now, right? So that's one of the things. We're working on some content with Microsoft right now, and they keep being like, well, we need to sprinkle the graph in here. I'm like, no, it scares the you-know-what out of people who aren't API-driven folks and who don't have any clue, right? I mean, even poor Nicola is still scared to death of it. She's like, the graph API, yeah! And it's like, dude, it's okay. It's really just the way we interact with the Office 365 pieces.
Yep.
But they do such a bad job of positioning it.
They do a bad job with two things, I think. Number one, yeah, the positioning, just the explaining what the graph is and removing the fear of it. And number two, the permissions. And I think the permissions in two aspects. Number one, will I have so much permission that I will destroy something? And number two, how do I get the permissions to do the thing that I want to do? Because depending on how you get into the graph, well, I use the Graph Explorer a lot to just kind of poke things together. And I think they've since now fixed it. But there were times when in the Graph Explorer, I would try to do things and it would just say, you don't have permission. Be like, well, rock on. Which permission do I not have so I can give it to myself? And so depending on how you hit it, you get different things.
Yeah, mommy said I could do it. So yeah, I mean, so she gave me permission. So who didn't give me permission here?
Yep. So then you end up doing the thing that we all hate where you give yourself all the permissions so you can do the thing that you want to do instead of just giving yourself the the individual permissions you need because you can't discover that.
That's the joys I've taken on as being a consultant and just a YouTube person, right? I'm like, just give yourself all the access, it'll be fine, because I don't have to live with this stuff anymore.
I was working on a production SharePoint 2007 farm yesterday.
Nice.
That customer also has a production 2003 farm that I have touched in the last month or so.
Yep.
But with 2007, this person also has some 2013 and 2016. And they've heard my tirade on service accounts and unique permissions and least privileges. They've heard all that and they buy it. They're good there. They understand. So we get in 2007 and they were trying to figure something out and couldn't do it. So they brought me in and they're like, well, I can't find the spot where I create this account and I give it those permissions. I'm like, that's because that didn't exist in 2007. We're going way back and up in the 2007 days. Everybody was an admin everywhere, installed everything as domain admin. Life is good.
Yeah, and that's, especially so I'm working on I just finished up a SharePoint 2013 on-prem with all the BI pieces, right? So Power Pivot, Power View, SSRS. Wow. And there's just portions of that you just have to be an admin to do, right? I mean, even to this day, it's just like, nope, you got to elevate yourself to God status to be able to do all these things. And then, if you're a nice person, you can take some of them away, but then you're like, oh, what happens to my patch? Oh, I need to put it. So
yeah,
that's why we like SharePoint Online so much, right? Someone else manages that, and I just use it.
Let that be Microsoft's problem. Yeah. Speaking of patches, yesterday was Patch Tuesday, so all the patches are out. I've updated the 2010 page and the 2016 page. I will do 2013 today. I still need to get the 2019 page. I have all the information in the background, but I haven't made the page to display it yet. I need to get on that. But those will be out there.
Traveling.
I've been traveling, and the other thing is Microsoft didn't update so there's two things have slowed me down. Number one is Microsoft did not update the major build number in SharePoint 2019. So SharePoint 2016, the major build was 16, and for SharePoint 2019, the major build number is also 16.
Oh.
Yep. So figuring out all that, and that's important because I wanted to put all of the 2016 and 2019 patches in a single XML file so that there's just one thing to update, and then trying to figure how to sort all that because now it's all 16. That's one thing. The other thing is the SharePoint 2019 preview actually has a later build number than the 2019 RTM build.
That's cute.
Was not expecting that. And then when I noticed that, I was like, certainly I have messed something up. There's something here that I don't understand. So it took me a while to get somebody at Microsoft to confirm that that was the case. I didn't ask why. It didn't matter. But I need to figure out how to handle all of that. And so that's my excuse for not having things. But I'm working with Lori on that because she's the designer of all that. She's the one that actually makes it usable. So I need to get with her. We've talked about it, but she's been busy and I've been busy, and we'll get her up soon.
For a moment there, I got nervous. You were going to say Lori was in charge of all the patch and build numbers, and that was, yeah, that makes more sense. He's in charge of making you not make ugly stuff.
Yeah, she's the one that actually makes it readable.
Gotcha.
So, but that's coming up. All right, so I think if we have some time left, we can talk about your crap.
Are you sure? I mean, I wouldn't want to put you out.
I want to, but I suppose if we have to, yeah.
Well, so, kind of keeping on patches. So I mentioned earlier I got to build that SharePoint 2013 farm with all the BI pieces. And I built that out in Azure, which is always a lot of fun. The customer kind of spins these up as development environments to do some stuff. But
yeah.
So building that, I've done this a lot for these guys. I have a punch list. I run through it, and I got done. And they're like, hey, site workflows don't work. I'm like, oh. Right, because let's be clear, the Windows Workflow Manager is still the stupidest piece of software on the planet.
Yuck.
And when I was installing that, so now like when you install it, you run the Workflow Manager, and then in the little controller that pulls down the software and installs the bits for you, it says version 1, use this version if this CU2 patch blah 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 for new installs. I'm like, okay, so I go looking for that. Well, there isn't a standalone installer for that.
Yep.
So I got really confused, but I think in the grand scheme of things, I just needed to press next and not read any more screens.
Yeah, just confuse yourself, yeah.
Yeah, right? So I hit next a bunch of times, it installs, and then it didn't work. So then I ran the Windows updates, which we all know, as we've talked about here several times, right? But Windows updates will install any security fixes for SharePoint, but not the actual cumulative updates, the new functionalities, the new features. So I let all of those run thinking, well, maybe they would sort out the whole site workflows not working because I was pretty sure it was that .NET patch.
Yeah.
So that didn't work. So then I ran Config Wizard. That didn't work. So then I manually downloaded the October 2018 CU. Yes. Put that on and then ran Config Wizard. And then site workflows just magically worked. So the moral of the story, right, I think Todd will explain it better here in a second, right? But I basically just kept patching the thing until it was done being patched, and then I didn't have problems anymore. So don't try to fix the problem until you're done patching.
Yeah, that was so Shane and I were kind of chatting this back and forth yesterday as he was fighting through it. I got to experience that whole thing. While it only took you guys about 45 seconds, I got to enjoy it all day long. But that was one of those things, and Shane and I have been doing this a bunch, so I was preaching to the choir. But when he's like, hey, this thing is happening off the top of your head, do you know the fix, or do I start down the patching route? And I'm like, nope, I don't know the fix, so go forth and patch. And this is one of these things that Shane and I run across as consultants that, I guess, Microsoft gets a bad rap because of the whole unsupported thing. If you do this, it's unsupported. If you do that, it's unsupported. And what unsupported really means is Microsoft won't help you fix it. That's it.
Yep.
And in this case, had the customer, they were not involved because Shane had set all this up, but had the customer called Shane and said, hey, workflows don't work. You need to fix this. And Shane says, well, you're about, 6 months behind on patches. Patch it first. And the customer says, no, I'll do that later, but let's fix the workflow thing. The fact that, Shane's instincts, we've done this long enough. He's like, no, let's do the patches first, because if we spend a bunch of time trying to fix this workflow, what we're probably going to find out is that it's the patches. So let's just patch everything. Let's get it up to speed. And yeah, this was a situation where that was exactly what the problem is. Patching, and more patching, and hey, it all works.
Yep. And I was also halfway through the patching. I was like, why is this taking so darn long? Remember, especially with SharePoint 2013, to use the Rust Max script to shut everything down.
Yep. Yep.
So literally, it was on patch 3 of 14, right? This is when the Windows installers were running, and the 3 had been running for like 2 hours. I just went and stopped all the stuff midstream. They figured it out.
Yeah. It's just waiting for that search service to respond. So yeah, when you kill it. And like Shane said when he was telling his thing, Windows Update will throw out some SharePoint patches, but those only patch the security flaws. So in his case, there was a bug, the .NET and the SharePoint were not talking. That's not a security issue, so the Windows thing will not fix that, and did not fix that for him, so he had to go through and manually put the SharePoint patches on. So don't be lulled into a false sense of security with the Windows Update patches.
And the real moral of the story is move to SharePoint Online and not deal with this anymore.
Well, there is some of that.
I've gotten so lazy. So the other thing, right, so we didn't have a show last week, and then we know Todd was off in Europe.
Gallivanting around Europe.
I was in almost as cool of a place. I was in northern Chicago.
Oh, which is fun. I like Chicago's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's why I was there. I went over and I went to Wisconsin for the first time. Right, I went and across the line, boop boop, because the supercharger closest to me was north.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so I got to spend some time out there, and so it was a private group. So I had a couple hundred people who wanted me to come in and kind of talk about Office 365 to get them excited.
Yeah.
And so one of the fun things I got to do was they're like, we want you to start like with the clients, right? Start at the beginning. And I'm like,
why not?
I haven't done that. Yeah. So, we talked about it maybe 2 months ago, the whole idea that there really is a substantial difference I've now learned, like firsthand, between Office 365, the clients, and Office 2016, the clients. I mean, night and day difference between those two programs or suites.
Yeah.
So I put the Office 365 clients on my machines finally, and I'm just seeing all these new things light up. Mm-hmm. Outlook, there's a couple really great features that I found that I thought was worth sharing. One of them is you can now have it that when you delete an item, it automatically marks it as read. So your deleted files doesn't have 27 unread files or things. So that was new. The other big one was today, if you aren't on your computer when a meeting happens, right, when you come back to your computer, it shows you all the meetings that you missed days and weeks ago.
Yeah.
All right, so Todd's computer this morning, or when he got back from Croatia, probably said, here's 8 weeks of meetings you missed.
Yep.
So there's an option in there now. You can say, don't notify me of missed meetings. And so those will no longer show up.
Where is that option? I would love that.
It's in the advanced settings. So you go into File, and then you go into...
Go backstage.
Let's see. We go to File, and then Options. And so I believe if you go to Advanced...
It's not under Calendar?
Maybe. Let's see. Enable, use animation. One of the two is in here.
So. All right. I'll check. We won't make the folks...
Yep. But yeah, I will find those and we will share those properly here next week. But those were two really big things for me, being able to find and add. And so I got to play with that type of stuff. I also got to kind of get in there and play with. There's a bunch of new ink stuff. I thought that was pretty neat. Also, like with PowerPoint, so there are new things around image smarts. So like when you insert an image, it can tag it, so it can go do the whole cognitive vision API stuff and be like, ugly guy in a Santa hat.
Yep.
Blurring the background is now built in, so you can have it automatically, and it doesn't do it perfect, but it does 80% of the work around blurring the background. So just a lot of fun little things in there. And I've had access to it for like 2 years, and I just never thought. I was like, I got Office 2016. It's the same. They are not the same.
Yeah, and that gap has widened. When that when that schism first happened, I was with you. I'm like, there's no difference. But I installed it 2 different ways on my 2 different machines, and it was all the same. But yeah, I've been noticing as updates come out, because the Office 365 one updates once a month, twice
once
a month,
week
sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah, every time it's just a little more stuff. So yeah. definitely worth. And for me, I don't know the exact way to tell the difference, but for me, the way I can always tell is the client has the autosave on or off. That's what I normally use.
That's new. And then you can also, I mean, like the send and stuff icons are like different, right? I mean, there's a lot of little nuances that are like, wow, you guys really you've done a whole bunch of fun little things here. So anyway, just wanted to kind of do that reminder and remind people that they're different. If you have access, Office 365 clients are probably better.
Yeah.
I also got to spend some time with Teams, so that was good because I've been very reluctant to embrace Teams, and I know I need to embrace Teams. So spend some time in there, kind of working on adding the channels, and then really getting into a channel, and then kind of working on all the things that you can add to a channel, right? 'Cause that's one of the things that I think where Power Apps really, starts to destroy our friend Slack that I hate so much. But, I can embed a Power App, I can embed a web page, I can embed, SharePoint content. I can even roll multiple SharePoint document libraries into the file section so the person has a whole bunch of files in one, because the idea is, right, if you're working on a channel for a project and the project has 7 different document libraries in SharePoint, you can just bring all those in. They can become nested in the file section of Teams. So
Gotcha.
I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah, Teams is one of those things. I have a lot of grievances with Teams. It's the wave of the future. I reluctantly use it. I complain about it hourly, but yeah, it's the UI has a lot of really rough spots, just dumb decisions from the UI experience.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody who was redesigning, and they're like, yeah, we looked at Teams. We don't really want to go that way. I'm like, you probably should, because that's going to be the future. So.
In a year, you'll wish you had, so go ahead and do it now. Yeah. I've done, so 2 weeks ago, so last week I was in Europe. 2 weeks ago, I wasn't at the podcast because I was flying out, and I was also doing some on-site Office 365 training.
Yep.
And you and I were on-prem guys. We were pretty hardcore on-prem guys. And I would say in our group of peers, consultants, and all that, we were late to the Office 365 game. I think we held out a little bit. I'm actually having a lot of fun with it. I feel like I hit it at exactly the right time. There's things you can do. So yeah, I've been doing a lot of the on-site training for end users, for admins. I was at a session in Slovenia, and one of the people, the presenters, was talking about something in Office 365, and she said, everybody, all the admins were worried that their jobs were going to go away. She's like, I've not talked to a single customer where an admin lost their job because the company moved to Office 365. She's like, it just hasn't happened. The job shifts, the job changes, nobody's lost their jobs.
Yeah, that's what you signed up for. You just signed up for a tech job, right? It's shifting and changes.
Yeah. So this speaker is also from Europe. So they have those. It's tough to fire people in Europe, so that might have been part of it too. But
and there's somebody wearing yellow vests really upset about that right now.
That's a topic of conversation over there right now. Yeah.
But yeah, and I think you have a good point, right? You and I were we were really late in the grand scheme of things to Office 365.
Yeah.
But what's interesting, I would say, is that because we came in late, I feel like we've went through it fast. Like we're further to acceptance than those people that came in early, right? If you think about the ones that came in early, right, they have more of those core things, but things like PowerApps and Flow and Teams, the new stuff, they are not accepting of at all, right? They're like, that stuff's going to go away, right? They've been burned by so much change. Whereas where you and I have come in, Office 365 is mature, SharePoint Online, right? So we don't have any pain there. And so you and I are spending a lot of time trying to get to the next level with Office 365, whereas the early adopters seem to be stuck where they came in at. I don't know. It's just a random observation.
Yep. No, I think that's good. But I guess for our audience out there that are hardcore on-prem folks and IT pro folks, if you're not loving Office 365, give it another shot. I think it's worthy of some love.
Well, yeah, you talked to one customer. They're like, "Hey, we looked at this a year ago and it was terrible." Right? You're like, "A year ago? Oh my God! I mean, were there stone tablets and dinosaurs back then?"
This is worse than dogs aging. 1 year ago, in Office 365 was 100 years ago.
Well, I think that also reminds us, another good point in this whole change in timing. And back to your mantra that every technical piece of information ever should have a date on it. Right?
Yes.
It's worthless without it. I know that there's content out there, right, that was written about the platforms 2 years ago, which was completely true 2 years ago.
Yep.
But I've seen vendors try to present that as today's content, and it's completely incorrect today.
Yep.
But they don't put a date on their stuff, so you don't know that it was written 2 years ago. And so yeah, back to this whole idea, you shouldn't trust anything that's not willing to put a date on when it was written.
I talked to a platform. I don't want to give any information away about it, but I talked to a platform that publishes Office 365 content, and I brought that exact thing up. I'm like, on your platform, there are no dates. And I brought that whole thing up, and they agreed wholeheartedly with our grievance. They said that they toyed with that a while back, putting dates on articles for exactly this reason, and the viewership on those articles dropped. The people would come in, and I'm like, and so for them, there was advertising on the page and stuff like that. They saw that as a bad thing. And I'm like, no, from the reader's side, that's a good thing. That means I went to that article, I saw that it was 4 years old about Office 365, and it wasn't pertinent to me, and I didn't read it. They're like, yeah, we need the page views. And so they took the dates off, and readership went back up. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah, nope. I completely see both sides of it, but I just, as listeners of the show, right? There's probably 3 people listening this late into the episode, but you've just got to accept that, if they're not willing to put the date out there, that just assume they're trying to hide something, right? They're especially vendor content, right? I mean, anytime somebody writes a comparison article between 2 platforms, if they're not putting a date on that, it's trash. It's not worth the paper or screen that it's written on.
It's not worth the paper that it would take to print it if anybody printed it out.
That's a complete tangent here, but you'd be shocked at how many people hit us up about more information about they want to be able to print from PowerApps. I'm like, that's completely not the point of this, but it is probably the most requested feature that is not in the product today, is the ability to print from PowerApps.
Interesting. I guess you could spit it out to PDF, and
that's my solution. Yeah. So people like me make videos around how to make it into PDFs, and you can print that. But it's just funny, right? When you go and look at the list of things people are asking for, that's the number one feature that it is requested. They don't have print.
Yeah, I don't print much. I've got 2 printers, but like when my printer kicks in, it startles me. Like I'm just so not used to hearing the printer that. Yeah.
No, we try not to also.
Yeah. So I guess the moral of this story is, if you need Office 365 training, Shane or I will do it, and we'll love it. End user training, IT pro training, governance training. There's just a lot of really fun things out there. I like it. All right, we probably have time for one more thing, Shane, of the stuff we haven't talked about. You pick one.
Okay, well then we're going to pick new PowerApps videos from your dearly beloved Shane out on YouTube. So I just put out one, PowerApps create a PDF from SharePoint list data.
Oh my, sounds very applicable.
Yeah, right. So a lot of people want to be able to go out and query, and pull in a bunch of SharePoint list data and then have that turn into a PDF. So we're seeing that for timesheets and purchase orders. Whatever types of crazy shenanigans you have, if you want to make your SharePoint list into printable data, PowerApps can do that. And then it sends it to Flow. Flow sends it to OneDrive. OneDrive converts it to a PDF, and then you can print the PDF.
It seems like a Rube Goldberg thing, but I love putting the pieces together. That's a very engineering type thing. I know how to do this. I know how to do this. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what's even crazier is when you generate the content, you have to generate it as HTML. So you got to dust off your HTML table creation skills inside the PowerApps function.
TD and TRs. Oh yeah.
Oh, I even got some THs. Yeah.
My, that is
advanced.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that one. I also put out another video on PowerApps tooltips and how to do like pop-up messages and adding contextual help into an app.
So I love that. And that's got to be tough on phones because you can't hover over and...
it's like you watched my video and I know you didn't.
No chance whatsoever.
So what I figured out was exactly that. So when you're in the browser, if you hover over this little like message icon that I use for my tooltips, it gives you a tooltip in the browser, right? So if you hover with a mouse, it does. You can't hover on a phone.
Nope.
So I took that same little icon and I made it so if you click it, it pops up a proper size bubble. So I recreated the tooltip functionality.
Excellent.
So that, because I had the same thought, like, I tried for like half an hour. Like, if I hold my thumb here, does hovering work? No, there's just no hover. So
That's
I don't know.
good stuff.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of a fun one. You know, what's interesting, I make video like that, and so that video, you know, will get 500 views, and the 500 people that will watch it will love it. But most people are like, I don't need to learn that. But then I make silly things like, you know, my first video on making PDFs, and it's like 10,000 people have watched it. It just, back to what you pointed out earlier, right? That one person who finds it, their life will be changed, but the rest of the people are like, not important.
And I mentioned this to you yesterday. When I did my on-prem training about PowerApps, I mentioned your Tesla app, and I had somebody who would love to have that, some of the functionality. So you need to do a video on that. You need to do that. And that's that thing, blocking stuff together. We've got the Tesla app for our car, but we don't have the power of Flow behind it. So now that we've got Flow, we can start putting things together and scheduling things and triggering things for our cars. And I've talked to a couple of people. They're excited about that. So you need to...
Get to work.
Yeah, maybe you and I need to sit down and think about what the things that video should talk about as Tesla owners and get some applicable stuff out there.
Yeah, well, the Flow conference is running, I think, literally right now.
Yeah, started at the same time this started, yeah.
I'm probably supposed to be doing something with that. But anyway, so my video for that is a half hour that actually shows that first getting started with the API. So how to go to that Tim Dodor's site and like read his API stuff and figure out how to translate, you know, API documentation into Flow. So I tried to get to that next level of here's how you would actually follow along. So
yeah.
So I'm laying the foundation. I'm with you. I need to do more with that, but I mean, I work 70 hours a week already, so I'm a little behind. Yeah, that's right. Make fun of me.
All right. Well, let's move on. So yeah, the community corner, the Flow conference is going on now. I put a link in the chat room. We've had a link before that's going on. I assume that'll be available recordings because it's all recording, so you'll be able to get it tomorrow, whatever.
Yeah, and apparently they broke this is behind the scenes thing, but they originally had signed up to do it with GoToWebinar that has 1,000-person limit. And they're like, no big deal, right? I think they're up to like almost 5,000 people.
Well
so
done.
they had to go to a second and a third platform. Like they have like, basically they're doing the webinar live and like from like 3 different providers to be able to handle all the people that wanted to do it. It's kind of crazy.
That is awesome. And then I think for conferences, I think the next thing you and I are doing is SP TechCon in Austin.
I bought my flight yesterday, so I am...
I need to do that. So that's February 10th through the 13th. You can go to sptechcon.com. If there's any referral codes, I don't remember if they've done that for that. Use my last name because I'm nicer than Shane. I don't know if they've done that or not.
I'm sorry, how do you spell Clint?
All of the smart people out there do not have problems spelling my name. It's only
Young.
you that have
You learned to spell young in the first grade.
And you know, I think that's probably why. So for those of you that don't know, Shane's real first name is not Shane. His real first name is Christopher. And I think that's why your parents have you go by Shane because you can't spell Christopher. So they're like, this kid will never be able to spell Christopher. We'll just have you go by Shane.
So real embarrassing story. Right, growing up as a kid, you know, I knew my first name was Christopher because every year the teacher the first day of school would be like, Christopher Young. I'd be like, Shane, Sean, Shane, Shane, right? So I knew that, but I had never had to use, I never had to write it, right?
Right.
So 7th grade standardized testing. The very
12-year-old Shane.
Very, very first time that I'd ever been presented with a thing. They're like, you know, write your name and then fill in the bubbles. And I'm like, I don't know how to spell that word. I've never.
Doesn't even look right.
Yeah, it had never come up. So yeah, my teacher had to tell me in the 7th grade how to spell my own first name. So,
that is awesome.
There you go.
I have no trouble believing that story whatsoever.
I'm certain you did not. But yeah, because it just never came up. So yes, and in the chat room, Mark Crispin says Christopher Robin. Yes, my mother called me Christopher Robin. So yes, that came up. Shane the Pain came up. Have all the fun you want.
Oh, that is great stuff. Yeah, so if you want to see...
See the gift. That's my Christmas present to you this year. Is tell you the story.
I've known you for so many years and had not heard that story. Oh,
because I've never told anyone. That is literally the first time I've never told my parents. I never told anyone that I couldn't spell my own name. But it was.
Well, thank God nobody watches this thing, so your secret's still safe.
Oh yeah, we're 40 minutes in. Everyone's closed it, so I'm good.
So then the next event you and I have is the North American Collaboration Summit in March in Branson. You and I have no idea what I'm doing there, but I'm doing stuff there. You're doing stuff there. We're doing a PowerApps thing. I have no idea. That's going on. Probably doing something in April that we've forgotten. There might be another thing in March that may or may not be happening. But in May, the SharePoint conference out in Vegas, the Big Daddy, SharePointNA.com. That will be where all the fun will be had.
See, if no one's watching, so no one can see the sweet dance I'm doing now.
Yep.
But yeah, that's SharePoint conference is always a good time. Lots and lots of our dearest and closest friends. So
lots of big announcements. SharePoint team always keeps a few things back for the May conference, so I'm sure they'll have something crazy for that as well.
And then now we're going to do the thing written at the bottom.
Oh, well, I suppose Lori put that note there. So as you all know, looking forward to it. My birthday is next month, and so we're going to do our birthday charity drive once again. We don't have everything set up, so normally Lori has that on her blog, but her blog was taken out by an asteroid, much like the dinosaurs. So her and I are working on getting that set back up. Well, I should have that up by next week. Should have had it up by this week, honestly. But we will do that. Lori's birthday is also next week. So yeah, we normally do this from her birthday to my birthday. And so that will be the thing. So as it's been in the past, you guys, our encouragement is just for you all, the listeners, to go out, donate to whatever charity is important to you, and let us know. And then normally I match the charities, though the last few years that's gotten to be a bit of an onerous amount. But we might figure something out on that. But that's just the thing. Just, if you're working in this industry, you're probably doing okay. And just encouraging people to give a little something back.
Yeah, well, speaking of giving something back, I mean, I just like to point out, did we even cover my birthday? No,
I couldn't tell you within 180 days when your birthday is. I don't even.
I just want everybody to understand that this is what happens in the show. We have a month-long celebration of Todd's birthday.
More than a month. My birthday is more than a month away.
And we literally do not know when my birthday is, right? Yeah, your birthday is 39 days away because I know when your birthday is.
So the only thing I can tell you that I know about your birthday is I know what year your birthday is, and that's only because I can frame it to something that's important to me, and that's in that you were born in 1977, the same year as my Trans Am. If you were not born in the same year of something that I cared about, I would have no idea how old you are whatsoever.
I'm just gonna let you all know that I'm very, very upset, and I've been holding on to this for the amount of time since my birthday transpired.
This has been festering, and this resentment's been brewing for years.
Yeah, so I'm not participating in your charity drive. I will give to charity after your birthday, just to spite you.
There you go. Yeah, that should be something we should try to figure out. No, I guess I don't even care when Shane's birthday is.
You don't. No, you don't.
I will have forgotten about this conversation in 30 seconds. I'll make a goldfish. It won't even matter.
There you go.
Well, this has been the last 5 minutes of this podcast have been the most fulfilling for me in weeks, months. So
glad I can help.
Oh, that's good stuff. Everybody, I think we're going to be around next week. We'll have to look at so Christmas is on a Tuesday this year. So the 26th is coming up. But yeah, we'll be around. I think I'm going to be around. You're going to be around. So thanks to everybody. I will get this out as quickly as possible. Chat room, I'll be around for a bit. But everybody else, thanks. Have a good week. And we'll see you next week.
Good luck with my birthday.